Before we begin, make sure you subscribe, like, and drop a comment because this story doesn't just take you inside one of the most feared prisons on earth. It drags you there in chains. The transport plane cut through the gray Russian sky like a blade. Inside, shackled at the wrists, waist, and ankles, sat a man who had once walked freely through London's financial district in tailored suits and polished shoes. Now, his head was bent forward, eyes covered with a black cloth hood, guards gripping his arms so tightly his fingers had gone numb. His name was Daniel Mercer. 42 years old. British citizen. Former logistics consultant for multinational corporations. Convicted in Russia for orchestrating one of the most sophisticated cross-border contract killings in recent European history. And he had just requested transfer to the most notorious prison in the country. Black Dolphin Prison. Western audiences are fascinated by extreme prisons. Solitary confinement. Endless sentences. Inmates forced to walk bent at the waist so they can never memorize the layout. But for Daniel Mercer, this wasn't morbid curiosity. It was a choice. And choices inside Russia's most brutal penal system are never random. The story really began 8 months earlier, in a quiet suburb outside Berlin. The body was found at 6:20 a.m. A jogger noticed a silver Mercedes parked crookedly against a lamppost, engine still running. Inside, slumped over the steering wheel, was Viktor Sokolov, a Russian energy broker with dual German citizenship. A single gunshot wound to the head. No sign of struggle. No witnesses. Clean. Precise. Professional. German authorities quickly realized Sokolov wasn't just a businessman. He was under investigation for diverting millions from energy contracts tied to state infrastructure projects in Russia. And he had been scheduled to testify. The bullet recovered from the vehicle was traced to a handgun registered in Moscow, previously reported stolen from a private security firm with alleged ties to organized crime. That's when Daniel Mercer's name entered the file. Mercer had consulted for Sokolov's logistics company 3 years earlier. He specialized in risk mitigation, corporate language for navigating unstable territories and dangerous partnerships. His passport showed recent travel to Moscow, Warsaw, and Istanbul within weeks of the murder, but there was no direct evidence, until a courier disappeared 3 days after Sokolov's death. A low-level Russian intermediary named Pavel Antonov failed to show up at a routine meeting in Kaliningrad. His apartment was searched. Inside a hollowed-out law textbook, investigators found a flash drive, encrypted. When German cybercrime specialists cracked it, they uncovered a chain of financial transfers routed through shell corporations in Cyprus and the British Virgin Islands. The final destination, an account in Daniel Mercer's name. The amount? €2 million. The transaction memo read only 2 words, Project Dolphin. By the time authorities connected the dots, Mercer had vanished. Interpol issued a red notice. Airports were alerted. His London flat was searched. Neighbors described him as quiet, disciplined, almost forgettable. But one detail disturbed investigators. 3 weeks before the murder, Mercer had sold nearly all his assets. Property, investments, even personal belongings. It wasn't panic. It was preparation. He resurfaced unexpectedly, not in London, not in Germany, but in Moscow. He walked into a police station voluntarily. Clean-shaven. Wearing a dark wool coat. I would like to make a statement, he told the officer at the front desk in fluent Russian. Within hours, he confessed to arranging Viktor Sokolov's assassination. He provided details only the orchestrator could know of: the shooter's travel route, the disposal location of the weapon, even the exact time Sokolov would leave his residence that morning. The confession stunned both Russian and European authorities, but what stunned them more was what Mercer refused to say. He would not name the client, he would not explain the motive. And when asked why he had surrendered in Russia instead of Britain or Germany, he gave a single, chilling response: because I need to be sent somewhere they can't reach me. The Russian court proceedings moved quickly. Evidence was strong. Financial trails were undeniable. The shooter, arrested in Belarus, confirmed Mercer had coordinated the operation through encrypted channels. Mercer received a life sentence under Russian law. And then came the unexpected twist. In a closed-door administrative hearing, Mercer formally requested transfer to Black Dolphin Prison. The judge reportedly paused before asking why. Mercer's answer was recorded in the transcript. Because in Black Dolphin, no one escapes, not even ghosts from the outside. Black Dolphin isn't just a prison, it's a fortress for Russia's most dangerous criminals, serial killers, terrorists, and those serving life without parole. Inmates are blindfolded during transport inside the facility. Cells are checked every 15 minutes. Prisoners are forbidden from lying down during daytime hours. It is designed not just to contain bodies, but to erase identities. For a Western businessman with no history of violent crime, the request made no sense. Unless he believed someone powerful wanted him dead. Russian officials approved the transfer. Which brings us back to the plane slicing through the gray sky. When Mercer arrived at the facility in Orenburg Oblast, guards forced him to bend forward at a 90-degree angle as they escorted him through steel gates layered with barbed wire. The air smelled like rust and disinfectant. A mural of a black dolphin, painted decades ago, stared down from the courtyard wall. Mercer didn't look afraid. He looked relieved. Weeks passed. Interviews were denied. Communication with foreign embassies was limited. German investigators attempted to question him again about the identity of the person who financed the murder. He refused. Then something happened that shifted the entire investigation. A journalist in Warsaw received an anonymous package. Inside was a printed copy of Mercer's financial transfers, the same ones discovered on Pavel Antonov's flash drive. But this time, highlighted in red ink, was a name investigators had missed. A beneficiary listed deep within the shell company structure. The name belonged to a senior executive in a Russian state-linked energy conglomerate. A man who had publicly clashed with Viktor Sokolov months before his death. Within days of the journalist publishing the findings, the executive denied all involvement and called the documents fabricated. And then, 2 days later, the journalist died in what authorities described as a fall from her apartment balcony. No signs of forced entry. No suicide note. German officials began to suspect that Mercer hadn't surrendered out of guilt. He had surrendered because he knew the net was tightening not around him, but around someone far more powerful. Back inside Black Dolphin, Mercer requested a meeting with the prison warden. According to internal reports later leaked, he made a single demand: "I will testify, but only if I'm guaranteed permanent isolation." The warden refused. Isolation inside Black Dolphin was already permanent enough. That night, during a routine 15-minute cell check, guards found Mercer standing in the center of his cell, staring at the door, waiting. When asked what he was doing, he reportedly said, "They've realized I'm still alive." The next morning, a routine inspection uncovered something impossible. A folded note had been slipped under Mercer's steel cell door. Inside one of the most secure prisons in Russia. The message contained just 4 words. "You should have stayed silent." And when investigators reviewed the surveillance footage from the corridor outside his cell, they found something that made their blood run cold. For exactly 12 minutes during the night, the cameras had gone dark.